Hello, I'm Mike. Welcome back to Plant Relations. Today I want to talk to you about pruning in November. We're not pruning to encourage flowers. We're not pruning to encourage growth. This is much more important than that. It's going to help you losing some of your beloved plants over winter. We're pruning against something called windrock. So let's dive in and take a look. So windrock occurs mainly in plants that we prune really hard in the spring, and then they grow back vigorously in the summer and flower on this season's growth. So things like this salvia, roses, budleias. A lot of these plants have basically go into emergency mode when we prune them hard back. We're mimicking browsing by animals, and they will suddenly burst up with lots of growth and they become very top heavy. The hard pruning will mean some of the root growth has died, and these plants are actually budgeted on the fact that they're probably going to get browsed again, but of course they don't. We just let them grow up and flower. And in this case, this salvia has looked magnificent since June up until now. But we do need to prune it now, because otherwise, when we get snow, or if we get snow, we don't always in the UK, or rain, this thing is going to flop down and snap. And in some cases, the whole plant will be almost pulled out of the ground by wind and snow. So all you have to do, and it's dead easy, is we just need to take off the top third to a half of growth. These salvias, this is some sort of macrophylla type, or it might be cross gemensis, but same sort of thing as hot lips and nectarlinda, some of the others. These salvias do come from more tender environments than the UK, so we need to leave a little bit of top growth for protection. And the whole thing is going to get chopped hard back in April, May time anyway, back to probably just 6 to 8 inches. But at the moment we are just taking this growth off to take the weight off the plant, to stop it from splitting. Now these plants, they come from much poorer, drier, arid places. By poor I mean poor in nutrients, and that means in the UK, where we've got relatively very wet, fertile soil, they grow an enormous amount, and this makes them leggy and more prone to snapping as well. And that's literally it. Now it's not going to move around now. It's nice and sturdy. It might even flower again if we get a mild spell. And like I said, I'll be back here again in spring to take this down to a much lower level when the worst of the frost and the snow has passed. You can see here, this buddleia, I've already actually given this a trim. So this is a lovely white one, and it normally flowers another 2 or 3 feet higher than this. It's been dead-headed, and then a few weeks ago I have trimmed this to just below fence level, and so that when the wind whips over and through the garden, it's not going to get caught. It's kind of protected by some of the planting either side. I mean, I could take this a little bit lower, wouldn't do the plant any harm, but I wouldn't advise chopping it down to the ground like you would do in February or January. Some years you can get away with that, but if we do get a very cold winter, you can lose your plants over winter in the hard frosts or heavy snows. So because pruning it, if you prune it down hard now when we get a mild spell, the plant will almost think it's spring, gets all this lovely fresh growth, and then when that gets whacked heavily by frost and snow, you tend to find sometimes they haven't got the energy to recover from that. So again, taking off about a third to a half, and that just stops this from getting blown over in the winter. And we'll come back to this probably about February, March time, and we'll probably take this down to about knee height. Just next to this buddleia, we've got some roses. You can see they're looking rather leggy, and it's important we take these bits off, even if they're flowering. I think now is a good time to just cut your losses. I mean, plants like this, you might be tempted to leave them on, but realistically they'll get wet and they won't open properly. You're better off just popping this in a vase inside if you don't want to lose your flowers. But again, we just took off all that leggy growth. It's pretty sturdy now, this plant. Doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. And it just means you're not going to lose your roses. Because although if your plant does blow over, you can often dig it back in and prop it back up and save it. But if you don't notice it and all those winter drying winds kill half of the root ball, then you might be forced to start again. And as you know, some of these roses, especially the David Austins, can cost a lot of money, like 25, 30 quid. So it's worth doing. This rose here is a great example of one that would definitely snap and be blown out the ground during the winter. You can see, look, it's really rocky, and this is almost like a corridor for wind down here. And if I didn't prune this, we would most likely lose this. Every time it rocks, it's ripping the roots and damaging the plant further and further. It's only got a few tap roots, main tap roots that go down, and then some finer roots on that. And every time this rocks, it's tearing off those lovely little side roots. So again, with this, we could probably take a lot off, 2/3. I'm taking this down to knee height, and that's much more stable now. It's not going to catch the wind. It'll survive for next winter. And we won't have to replace it. And of course, replacing roses is very tricky, because you can't often plant a rose where you've had a rose, you get something called rose sickness, then you have to dig out all the soil, or you have to add mycorrhizal fungi. So you really want to avoid losing your roses if you can, because it's going to be difficult to replace them. I'm going to get on now and prune the rest of these so that we don't lose them to windrock. And I hope this video has been helpful. Remember, do not overthink your pruning. We don't need to be worried about pruning to a bud or anything like that. We're literally just hacking off that top third and top half of growth just to enable these plants to survive through the winter. And then in the spring, when we then prune them hard at the right time of year, then we'll worry about pruning to an outside bud, making sure we don't leave dead snags, taking off all the dead wood and things like that. This is literally just a tidy up to save them from losing them in the winter. Thanks for watching. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ciao, ciao for now.